They say he was just a peasant, a man without study, no titles, no voice. But why then the whole sky moved when he kneeling? No one told you that, because they shouldn't tell. The miracle he lived was hidden, silenced, ignored for the centuries, but never forgotten by the sky. He touched the earth with his hands, and the sky responded with miracles. Who was this man? How could someone so simple to do the impossible without getting out of anonymity? And most important, why was this miracle forbidden? Maybe because he proved something that bothers you to this day, that you do not need to be great to be heard by God, but it needs to be pure, deep, real. This is not just the story of a saint, it is the mirror of your own faith, or the lack of it. Prepare, because from now on, you will never look at the floor without remembering that it can open to the sky. Do you want me to adapt this introduction also to a cinematic off-narration, with strategic breaks and voice rhythm thought to attach attention? We are living challenging times where faith and family protection are more necessary than ever. Therefore, I have prepared a special digital book with powerful prayers for the protection of your family and the worship of the Blessed Sacrament. You can download your copy for free now, accessing the link in the first fixed comment. This guide was made to strengthen your faith, protect your home, and transform your spiritual life. Do not let it for later, for the need for prayer and consecration is urgent. Click on the first comment, download your book, and start protecting your family today with the strength of prayer and the presence of God in your home. Don't waste time, your spiritual protection begins now. Of course, because Santos can only use cassock, talk Latin, and live in monasteries, right? And if I told you that one of the most miraculous men in church history, I wore dirty dirt, couldn't read, and talked more to the floor than to men. It did not make sermons. I didn't write treated, but there was something that the whole sky respected, intimacy with God. And now tell me, how do you explain a peasant who, while praying, have angels riding the earth in your place? How do you understand someone who plays a dry stone and it sprouts water like in a second Exodus? And if this man, forgotten by the books, ignored by the great, are you even more active today than you've ever been in life? Perhaps your faith is dying because you never knew who really lived the faith. This is the story that almost no one tells, but that can change everything. If you have the courage to continue, get ready, because the earth will speak. Do you believe that a simple peasant may have been more powerful than many kings? What if I told you that a poor, illiterate and humble man, did he move the heavens only with the strength of his faith? This is the hidden story behind the plough, the earth, and with dirty knees of prayer. The history of Saint Isidore the Farmer, the saint who, even being invisible in the eyes of the world, was known throughout the sky. He did not wear crown, it did not wear golden tunic. He never spoke to the crowds, nor was he called great in life. But his greatness was in silence. Isidore was a man of the earth, literally. He worked as a peasant on the outskirts of Madrid in the 12th century, poor, simple, without study, but with such powerful faith that even angels helped him to draw the field. And you may be thinking, what do you mean, angels helping a man work? Yes, and it was not an allegory. And don't forget to also guarantee your digital prayer book for family protection and worship to the Blessed. It is crucial that you download your copy now while it is still available for free. One day, his boss began to suspect that Isidore was neglecting the work. He spent a lot of time in prayer before taking the hoe. Then the boss followed him, hidden, and what you saw, everything changed. While Isidore was on his knees praying in silence with his face turned to the sky, two angels crashed the earth in their place. With invisible hands, they moved the plough, and the field yielded twice as expected. A peasant that did not only produce harvests, but miracles. But why did no one tell you this story? Because the holiness of Isidore did not shine in the palaces or in the wars. She sprouted in the mud, in dust, in humility. And the most impressive, Isidore asked nothing for himself. Everything he picked up, he divided. God gave him twice for him to deliver triple. And even when the drought threatened, when the people feared by hunger, Isidore prayed, touched the earth, and it sprang up where no one saw hope. In a world that values titles, fame, and wealth, Saint Isidore reminds us that the sky does not measure greatness by height, but by the depth of the soul. And maybe you feel small, invisible, no great deeds, but have you prayed with the same heart as this peasant? Couldn't you silent either, with a pure and hidden faith? Have you ever felt that no one sees you? Have you ever had the feeling that your life goes unnoticed, like a forgotten seed on the hard earth? So it is, so was Isidore. No fame, without possessions, no voice in the world, but with a heart that the whole sky heard. Isidore was born in the late 11th century in Madrid, Spain, in a very poor family. From an early age, his contact with the earth has been intimate. He not only stepped on her, he understood her. While other boys dreamed of adventures, glory, or castles, Isidore walked between the fields as one who listens to whispers from the Creator himself. He doesn't arrive the earth. He was talking to her. Still young, lost her parents. And as expected at that time, he was forced to work to survive. He became the employer of a feudal gentleman, and his craft was clear, to draw the land from sunrise to sunset. But there was a detail. Isidore woke up before others, not to work anymore, but to pray. And that started to bother. Murmurs came up. He's lazy. Waste time with prayers. It will bring damage to the boss. The envy of other workers grew, and the holiness that shone discreetly in Isidore was now seen as an obstacle. And then the boss decided to investigate. He left before the sun. He hid behind the olive trees and observed, and what he saw made him fall to his knees. Isidore was alone, kneeling, talking to God as who talks to an old friend. And in the field beside, two beings of light, two angels, guided the plough and the oxen. The scene was impossible, but it was real. While the world thought Isidore as lazy, the sky worked by his side. It was as if God said, "He who honors me in the first place will not be left behind." But what was so special in this peasant? The answer is simple. He was faithful. Faithful when no one saw. Faithful even when they accused him. Faithful when the earth was dry and the harvest scarce. Faithful when the cross seemed too heavy to carry. And that is why the heavens moved for him, because it is not the volume of your prayer that moves angels, but the purity of your heart. And don't forget to also guarantee your digital prayer book for family protection and worship to the Blessed. It is crucial that you download your copy now while it is still available for free. Now answer me with sincerity. How many times have you changed the prayer for haste? How many times did God leave God, thinking he had most important things to do? Isidore also had duties. It also had tiredness, accounts, obligations, but he chose every day to put God before the field, and so the field produced miracles. At the end of that day, the boss did not scold him. On the contrary, respected him, because he realized that Isidore was not just a land farmer, he was a soul farmer, starting with his. This was only the beginning of the life of a hidden saint, an invisible man for men, but acclaimed by angels. And you? Are you willing to be faithful even without applause, even if no one sees? Because maybe the earth is expecting your faith to touch. And if the faith of a simple man could return life, where had everyone already given up? This is not the kind of miracle that gets newspaper covers. It does not involve crowds, no lights, no spectacle. But maybe for that, very much, be so powerful. And don't forget to also guarantee your digital prayer book for family protection and worship to the Blessed. It is crucial that you download your copy now, while it is still available for free. The morning had started like any other. The air was dry, but peace in the fields was still felt. The oxen, faithful crop companions, moved slowly, almost as those who understood the soul of those who guided them. Isidore, as always, walked alongside his animals. He knew them by name. He knew which one limited on cold days, which one resisted the most of the plough. It did not see them as tools, saw as God's creation. And that's why, on that day, his heart squeezed. One of the oldest and most strong oxen, the one who accompanied him from the beginning, suddenly collapsed in the field. The deaf sound of his heavy body falling on the earth spread as a sign of sadness. The other animals stopped. The workers looked at each other, and some already whispered that nothing else had to be done. "It's old age," said one. "Let it really die," another. But Isidore knelt down, not because the ox was useful, but because it was alive, and because, for him, each creature had value before the Creator. He ran his hand over the animal's muzzle. It was cold, the half-circled eyes, the chest almost motionless. It was as if the soul of that being was leaving slowly, without haste, but without return. Isidore didn't shout it, did not run into despair. He silenced them and started praying. The dirty hands of earth held the animal's head as a child holds. Isidore's face was turned to the sky, but the eyes, full of tears, they were dug into the earth. It was a silent prayer, but live, deep, full of supplication and delivery. And then something happened. While everyone was already resigned, the ox's body trembled once, then another, until the animal with effort raised his head and breathed again. The field was mute. No one could understand. The animal that everyone considered dead was now standing. Isidore didn't say, "I did." He did not point to the sky, shouting, "Miracle." He just caressed the ox neck, smiled discreetly, and returned to work. Because true faith does not seek stage. She acts in silence and lets the fruits speak for themselves. Later, one of the workers commented, "You waste time praying." And Isidore replied, "Wasting time with God is to win everything the world cannot give." That ox lived for many years, and it became a symbol around Madrid of the force that a humble soul has when kneeling with love. This was just one of the many signs that God granted Isidore. Miracles that were born not of magic formulas, nor of complicated words, but the certainty that where the world sees an end, faith sees beginning. And you? When something or someone around you seems dead, dreams, relationships, hopes, do you pray for this with real faith? Or have you learned to bury things that God still wanted to get up? Perhaps the answer to what you think you have lost. Be a sincere prayer away. And like Isidore, you don't have to scream. You just need to believe, even when everyone has turned their backs. And if I told you that a simple plate of food, can you become sacred? Not all miracles of Santo Isidore involve water sprouting from the rock or angels ploughing the earth. Some of their biggest miracles happened in the kitchen, on the wooden table, in the silent sharing. It was an ordinary morning, of those where the sky is cloudy and the empty stomachs. The work in the field required strength, but the house of Isidore and Mary, his wife, barely had flour for bread. That month's crop had been weak, and the little they had was told carefully to last until the end of the week. That morning, Maria Toribia prepared a small meal with what was left, a hardened bread, a little cooked grain, and a jar of warm water. It was little, but that's what they had. Isidore thanked a smile, like who is facing a banquet. They sat together, handled, made a prayer, and they would eat when someone knocked on the door. It was a beggar, lean, torn clothes. The back eyes of those who no longer expect anything from life did not ask. He just looked at them with an expression that said more than any word, "I'm hungry." Maria hesitated for a second. There was not enough food for them. But Isidore's look was straightforward, without judgment, without calculation. Just said, "Serve what we have." She took a deep breath, shared everything into 3 dishes, and handed the stranger the biggest portion. The man ate in silence. It didn't cry, didn't thank. He only ate with the slowness of those who savor the only dignified meal in days. Then he got up, looked into Isidoro's eyes, and disappeared, literally, as if it had never been there. Maria was speechless, but what happened next still echoes for the centuries. When she returned to the kitchen to clean the dishes, there was more food in the pan than before. The pan was full, the bread soft, the fresh water. Isidoro just smiled. He didn't ask how. He already knew. The table of the division never empties. God does not multiply in the hands of those who accumulate. It multiplies in the hands of those who trust. That day changed Mary forever. And it shows us that faith is not measured by the miracles that see themselves, but for the gestures of love that are made when no one is seeing. Isidoro's house has never been big, but in it, there was always room for one more. And so, God never missed. It was not about the food, it was about the heart. And perhaps, unknowingly that day, they fed Christ himself disguised as poor. Because who offers the little with love, it serves the whole sky without realizing it. And you, when the scarcity knocks on the door, your heart closes or opens. Do you calculate or trust? The world says keep, but God says delivered, and you will see. Because in the end, the miracle does not start in the pan, it starts in the gesture. Soon. Here is chapter 6 of the history of Saint Isidore the Farmer, developed with emotional depth, narrative techniques that create immersion, spiritual connection with nature, and a powerful message about the harmony between man and God's creation. All in clear language, accessible, with rich detail, and without losing the strength of spirituality. Some people pray with words, others with silence, but there is a tip, the rare of soul, that prays with a lifetime. It was like this with Isidoro. He made no distinction between praying and working. For him, plowing the earth was as sacred as bending his knees. Every step, every seed, every touch on the hoe, everything was a living offering. And that's why nature recognized him. One morning, as the field was still awakened and dew ran down the leaves, Isidoro walked to the little stream to pray. It was not a fixed ritual. It was a habit of love. He spoke to God before he talked to any man. The sky was clean, and the birds sang loudly, as they always did at the sunrise. But something strange happened as soon as Isidoro knelt. The singing ceased, as if all nature held the breath. The trees remained real estate. The wind stopped. Not even a leaf moved. Not a single bird piava. It was as if the entire field had bowed in reverence. Isidoro said his prayer in silence, with his forehead against the ground. And all this time, the world expected, not out of obligation, but out of tune. It was as if the whole creation recognized that this man was talking to the Creator. When he finished and made the sign of the cross, he got up. And then the birds sing again. The wind blew smooth, nature breathed again. The other workers who came in the distance were surprised by silence. And when they arrived, they said, "It's as if the field knew when you pray." Isidoro just smiled and replied, "He who lives in peace with God makes the earth rest." It was not poetic, it was real. This episode was repeated so many times that peasants began to follow Isidoro's secret, just to see him pray. Not because they wanted to hear the words, but because they wanted to feel the peace that sprung from it. And this peace even infected the animals. One day, during a strong storm, while everyone ran to shelter, Isidoro stayed in the field, praying. A cow that had been lost from the flock appeared, scared, and ran toward him. Seeing him kneeling, she lay beside her and remained there, serene, until the rain passed. It was as if the animals knew, near him, nothing touches us. And it was not because Isidoro had some mystical gift. It was because I lived in a state of prayer. He did not say prayer. He was a prayer. He didn't shout at the heavens. He walked hand in hand with the sky. And so, even the elements, the fire, the rain, the birds, the animals, responded tenderly. The harmony he lived with creation was the reflection of a soul he never wanted to master, but serve. You may be trying to control everything around you, forcing results, pushing doors. But have you ever stopped to think that nature obeys peace, not the noise? Maybe if you will talk to God again as Isidore did, with simplicity, constancy, and a heart without masks, your own life sing again, just like the birds, who only singing again when he said, Amen. Some people die as they lived, in silence. No great farewells, no statues, no crowns. But Isidore's death was different, not because it was surrounded by pomp, but because heaven came to meet him. Already elderly, the signs of time began to weigh on their shoulders. The hands, which once a lot of land, now shake. But even with advanced age, he never abandoned the routine of prayer and work. Isidore felt, not with fear, but with peace. He knew the time was coming, and that didn't scare him. On the contrary, he expected with the same sweetness with which he expected the sun to be born every day. On the last morning of her life, Isidore woke up early, as always. He said his prayer. He looked at the field one last time and smiled. He was found hours later, kneeling, his face serene and hands united. He died as he lived, praying. He died like few have the grace to die, in a state of peace. But the story doesn't end here. Shortly after his death, the miracles began. A sick child was taken to his grave. There was no cure. Local medicine had already given up, but before the simple grave made of stone and earth, the mother knelt and said, Isidore, you understood the sky when no one else understood. If you can still hear, interceded by my son. The same night the fever ceased. The next day the boy ran through the countryside as if he had never been sick. And it wasn't the only one. The reports began to multiply. Simple people, humble people, came from all over Spain to touch the land where Isidore had been buried. They didn't come to look for a show. They came to seek hope, and everyone came out with the same sensation. There, in that tomb, God was present. Over the years, authorities began to investigate the signs, and when his body was exhumed almost 4 decades after his death, he was incorrupted. Isidore's body, that peasant without study, without social position, was intact. No smell, no decomposition, as if I had slept, and then they died. It was there that they understood. Heaven never forgot the one who was faithful in the countryside, he who never wanted glory, he who planted faith and reaped eternity. Saint Isidore was canonized in 1622, but your holiness, it didn't start at the altar. It started when he chose to be small, when he preferred God in a hurry, when it turned hoe into prayer, and prayer into a miracle. And you? Have you been living as who already prepares eternity, or are you spending your life on what won't flourish? The history of Santo Isidore shows us that the true saints do not shine in the palaces, they spring from the floor, because every soul that loves God in silence wake up one day being heard throughout the creation. They called him a peasant, of simple man, of the servant of the earth. But what if he had never gone? The land he has played still produces. The water that sprouted still gushes. The field where he prayed still silences the birds. And don't forget to also guarantee your digital prayer book for family protection and worship to the blessed. It is crucial that you download your copy now while it is still available for free. And you really believe that a saint like Isidore, who spoke to angels and made the creation obey, did you leave forever? Or is it silent? He still goes through the dirt roads, still blows invisible prayers on harvests that no one sees. Is it when you pray alone and think no one is listening, he is by his side? How was he with so many? Not noticed. And if that request you made in a moment of despair, was it answered? Why did anyone intercede without you knowing? And if this someone, if you called Isidore, after all, why did so many miracles emerge after your death? Why didn't your body corrupt? Why do so many witness to feel peace when visiting their grave? But maybe the most uncomfortable question, don't be about him, but about you. You have already stopped to think, if God moved heaven by a humble farmer, what could not do with your life? If you trusted the same way, Is your inner field dry? Why did prayer stop being cultivated? Does miracles no longer happen? Or did you stop recognizing them? And finally, are you ready to find out where Saint Isidore really is now? Because there are those who say it appears in the fields, others that he plays hearts in silence, and there are those who claim that he is the saint of souls that no one sees. But what if, deep down, are you called to be like him, not a peasant from the earth, but a farmer of faith, hidden in the world, visible only in the eyes of God? And don't forget to also guarantee your digital prayer book for family protection and worship to the Blessed. It is crucial that you download your copy now while it is still available for free. The story ends here, or start now. You decide. But if you still feel something burning inside, if the questions didn't leave you alone, the next video can have what your soul is looking for. Click now. Maybe it's Saint Isidore calling you without saying a word.